Oh, there we are. Look at that, Martine. 21 degrees over there in the UK. Um, hey, Hélène, bonjour. Hi, Diane. Hey, Ruth, shalom. Nice to see you. Hi, everyone. Hi, thanks for joining me quite last minute. But I know we didn't have anything on yesterday. Hey, Chloe, nice to see you there. I know we didn't have anything on yesterday. And so I just thought, Um, I'm here in Canmore. I'm in the very, very, very new neighborhood here. So I thought it'd be sort of interesting, but I thought it'd be fun just to have a little bit of a get together and a chit chat. Hey, Lisa, and give your mummy a big hug from me. Do you know, actually, hey, Hayward, hi there. Um, Lisa, I noticed, well, I looked at your painting again today because I have it right behind the dining room table. You might have seen it a couple of tours. And so I was thinking of you. Hayward, I hope you're having fun down there in Key West. I love Key West, and I have not been back since pre-pandemic, but I have been there quite a few times. Hi, Jennifer, Hannah. Hey there, Stephanie. Hey, Jay. So nice to have you all here. It is a gorgeous day. Little windy, so just to give you a quick little chat through my day, I was up. Hey, Jeff, good to see you. So I voted, and Anja, hi there. Guten Tag, guten Abend. I voted today, which was very important. This is the first day that the early voting starts. I would have changed my flight if I couldn't have voted beforehand, but we have AMV, we have elections on, of course, and then I did a private virtual tour today, and then I was packing, and I'm doing exciting things. I don't want to show off, but like I'm doing my taxes. Hi, Ashley. Nice. Um, but I'm here. Finn School is about 4 kilometers up that way. Um, Who did? Oh, if in case you're wondering, I voted. Let me show you who I voted for and who I didn't. But first of all, I want to give you a quick view of the national bird of Canada, in case you're missing it. There's the crane. See this? This is all new development. There are the Three Sisters, and Finn School is down at the base of those mountains out there. We are in Canmore, so these people are Canmorons. And in case you're wondering who I voted for, it would exactly be Sarah right here. That is precisely who I voted for. Some of you have been enjoying my TikToks. Incidentally, who I didn't vote for is that. Um, but I want to say a quick hello to everyone. Let me do, first of all, a quick land acknowledgement here. So, Oki, I'm on Treaty 7 territory. Um, and what is the NL? I don't know. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I don't know, Antje, what you're referring to. I apologize. Um, yeah, yeah. Anyway, all that noted. There is Grotto Mountain up there. But I do want to show you, we're over by the creeks. These all sort of flow out Spring Creek because it's spring fed. And why do I know this creek? Look at this gorgeous water. Why do I know this is spring fed? Um, did Anne leave? Thank you, Anne. See, I know this is spring fed because it's so clear. So this is not snow runoff or melt. So yeah, I just thought it'd be fun to have a little bit of a chit chat today. Lorraine, hi Lorraine, nice to see you from Australia. What a lovely pleasure to see you here. I'm in the Spring Creek area. This is all this new development that's happening for years and years and years. When I was living here, when I was growing up, this is the town of Canmore, so I'm outside of Banff. I knew lots of people who lived in a mobile home park. First of all, I dislike the term trailer trash immensely because, people can't always control their economic situation. But secondly, when you live in a community like this, say, what's your favorite neighborhood? There is no good neighborhood, right? When you live in the Rocky Mountains, you're just happy to be there. A lovely fresh flow here, but this is spring fed. So really, one could argue that the town of Canmore is in fact an island. It's a bit of a stretch, but you actually have creek land all the way around, and that's because we're in a great big sort of floodplain down through here. So very interesting. There is Mount Lady McDonald up there in the distance. Thanks, Michelle. Um, Michelle, I have to tell you. So first of all, you don't have to always, but it says $4.99 from Michelle. Lemon character lifting baby lemon in the air. Um, it's just fantastic. So all of this super chat and all of this is all very new to me, and I'm trying to be as supportive as I can to my other friends who are guides about how all this works on YouTube. But you can see through Streamlab, we're getting nice, beautiful, clear image. My phone just told me that my laptop is left behind. So we are down in Spring Creek, and this gorgeous clear water down here. I would actually quite, it's true, Antje. I would happily bend over and actually drink some of that water. Um, so Canmore here, of course, I did a tour just the other day, but it's so much fun to share it. Look how perfect and pristine that is. Although you're not going to see a lot of fish in here, and I'll tell you why. In fact, does anyone know what you call a fish with no eyes? It's a fish. I'm hoping our friend Anne is still here because she loves that joke. But if I were to actually reach under the banks, I could probably find some small trout down in there. Um, then, hey, Leandra. Well, I am in fact flying to Amsterdam tonight. So my flight leaves from Calgary at 8:15 p.m. to London. I have 2.5 hours there, and I'm flying over to Amsterdam. And I do have to say, which is um, no, the no idea one is a deer with no eyes. That's no idea. Um, hold on, is Lee here? Because I'm flying over to see my friends, and so I'm due in Paris on the 29th, and I cannot wait because that's also with friends, but that's work. But I'm flying over, and this is the plan, just to let everyone know, and then we'll come back to what we're looking around here. But I am landing in Schiphol Airport, and then I'm going to take the train to the central station, and our friend Lee is meeting me, and Mark will be waiting in a boat on a canal. How cool is that? So do keep your eyes and ears open because if a flight's on time, we might put up a cheese tasting tour tomorrow evening in Mark and Eric's place because Mark's husband works in a cheese factory, or not cheese, a cheese shop. And so we might just put that up for the sheer fun of it. So looking so forward to that. Doesn't that sound just yummy? And so anyway, that's the plan. Now everyone knows that I do travel a lot, and I'm sort of it's a little tough to dig myself out from being home right now because of the time I've had at home. Of the 8 days, 5 of them were so smoky we couldn't really go out of the house. But I have biked my heart out the last few days, so much so I'm actually kind of sore. Um, and our friends Mark. And the reason, and if you're new to us here, Mark and Lee are both virtual guides as well, and real life guides and personal friends. And they've and then our buddy Dave Kavanagh from Ireland is coming over to join us. So it's a big crowd. They have just about every minute of my time scheduled away, but in a fun way. And then I will be going down to Paris, en France. Now, Paris, I have had a long relationship with. At age 19, which is just a couple of years ago, I spent a year at the Sorbonne down there, and then I went back and did a master's degree in France as well in Paris. So it's a city I know well. It's when you look at the vast wilderness I live in, you can probably understand that Paris is not my natural state of being, but it's an interesting place. Um, that's is that right, Angina? So we're down here now. This is the downside to a place like Canmore. Canmore is sort of I was explaining this earlier on a tour. Um, oh, Gregory, where I'm feeling sore. Great question, actually. Sorry, I'm trying to find the. There we go. So because I'm a real road cyclist, but I have my new fat bike, and I have been mountain biking like mad. So it's up in the it's that shaking because I've been going just through the trees. Yesterday I did 25K. Um, so, but I've been just pure as the driven snow. So ask my knees. No, my knees are great actually. But I don't pray a lot, so I don't get. But talk to me in 2 days, and let's see what's hurting up here once I've had cheese and wine and beer in the Netherlands. So the mountain up there in the distance. Sorry, there is Mount Lady MacDonald, named for Agnes MacDonald, the second wife of the first Prime Minister of Canada, Johnny MacDonald. Um, it's a really heavy conversation because the more we talk about this kind of history, this isn't revisionist history. This is factual history. He was complicit in genocide. There's no other word. Like he actively set out to starve out Indigenous populations. Um, Natalie, I will absolutely eat herring. I love pickled herring. I don't particularly like the herring dipped in the onions, but I love pickled herring. I like roll mops. I like all that sort of stuff. So yes, indeed. So Agnes MacDonald, though, from everything I read about her, she was actually much warmer to the communities. And famously, as they came across the country when the trains were completed on November 7th, 1885, it would take 9 days from Montreal to Vancouver, and she would sit out on the front of the cars, and these little nascent settler communities, she would greet people. Look at the fabulous forms of these trees here. As they curve up, of course, they find their way towards the sun. They have these root systems that are just embedded deep into the soil here. So it takes a long, long time for them to erode away, which is quite interesting to see as well. And so it is really, Natalie, you agree with me. Now we have wildlife everywhere. Interestingly, I've only seen so far this year two bears. They are all out. This is a much earlier spring, and look at all of the trees. The lilacs are coming out everywhere. It smells delicious around. But of course, about 92% of our forests out here are evergreen. But if you do have a look at this, this is a silver birch. And the silver birch that we see here have only been planted. By elevation, we are too high up to actually have birch trees. That way, so we have the aspen, which is really, that's what all of these are. They're the big deciduous cousins, and they're the higher elevation ones. And then we have the larch, way, way, way high up. Some little being was just talking to me. I think it was a squirrel, although oh, actually, what are you? Um, there's so many birds around this time of year. That might be a nuthatch dancing around up there, which is fun. Often you always know a nuthatch when they're facing down on the side of the tree, but it had the beak that made me think about a nuthatch. Um, Great question, Chloe. Thank you for asking that. The growing season here, I would say, is probably closer to 120 days, particularly out here in Canmore. Now, this year is a longer growing season, so all of these deciduous trees have just popped out way, way, way earlier than they normally would have. So this is much more the kind of growth you'd expect kind of into June. So we're moving towards the last week of May, but really, of course, we had much hotter weather than normal. We're coming into view of mighty Mount Rundle, but before that, I wanted to show you this building just over here on the left. This is a reconstruction of the original Opera House. You know, we say Opera House, obviously it wouldn't be world-class opera, but most of the small frontier towns, all the way from down in places like Nevada and Colorado, all the way up to Alaska, but in the West, would have always had an opera house. And it would have been a show. Um, it wasn't sort of the casino gambling, dancing ladies thing. It would have been a slightly more elevated procedure. And the fellow who developed this whole area, needless to say, is extremely wealthy, but he does loan this out, I think generally at no cost for community activities. So at least he's a community person that way. But you see where it says the Opera House? You get a sense of what these would look like. Frontier. Yeah, sort of like Stratford. Exactly. And this year I will be in Virginia City in Montana at least 4 times. So I will 100% take you down there, which is the true frontier town. It was actually the capital of Montana for about 10 years. The whole population now is about 160 or something around that. So those are what frontier towns feel like. Now you can see why they've done these modern developments down through here. And some people will say that they don't like these cookie cutter houses. There's a large retirement facility in here. My mom, who is generations from the Canadian Rockies, chose to go to the city. I haven't lost you, everyone. My phone just rang. I have it on Do Not Disturb, um, but mom chose not. She did not want to live in one of these stacked apartments. And that was absolutely her prerogative and her right. But the reason I'm actually quite supportive of these is I could take you around other neighborhoods out here where houses sit empty and their average value is $4 or $5 million and they take up a huge amount of space. So that's really the trade-off. Um, is that right, Auntie? Yeah. So the opera house that I have not seen that I want to see, and I think we all feel the same about it, is the one in Mataus in the Amazon in Brazil. That's sort of one of the most famous opera houses. When I was down there in Iquitos last December, that of course was the Tin House, which they all say was designed by Gustav Eiffel, and it wasn't, but it's kind of a cool story. Um, so we're looking up in the distance. We can look up to the distance there to Mount Picchi or Soaring Eagle, that particular one in the distance. I'm going to try and see. There you go. Lovely mountain. If you can be straight on, so I'd have to be about 2 or 3 kilometers down and looking straight at it, it really does look like an eagle's head and the wings reaching out. That is a uh, that is a fascinating mountain because its name was so racist that I'm not even going to repeat it, and then it was renamed. It's taking a lot longer to rename Tunnel Mountain Buffalo Mountain because, of course, needless to say, it's a much less offensive term. But this is part of that progression and acknowledgement. And here in the town hall, they do actually have a land acknowledgement, which is really wonderful. So I have wandered down past here with all of you before, but these marshlands are really, thanks, Gregory. Yeah, I appreciate it. Um, Down through here, these marshlands represent less than 3% of the environment in the Canadian Rockies, which is part of the reason we don't have a huge moose population. Now we have a big, big, big elk population. Incidentally, yesterday afternoon, I was out for, say, a 25-kilometer ride on my bike, and I came around a corner, and there was a great big bull elk. Now, his antlers are only about a third of the way along, but we startled each other, so I slammed on my brakes, and it was such a gentleman sort of conversation because he looked at me, he sort of was startled, and so was I. And then we were both like, I'm not so scared. And we looked at each other, and I said to him, obviously, I don't think he speaks English. I think sometimes I speak French, but I said, I can turn around. And then he sauntered off like this. He sauntered off about 3 meters further away from the trail I was on. And I said to him, thank you. And I carried on my way. So we had a nice encounter. Um, and lo- lovely, lovely, huge creatures. And he's not getting aggressive for ages. His body in the later part of September will be taken over by testosterone, which I think us gentlemen can, comment on from time to time. And and then he will fight to have a harem, and he will I mean, all he's doing is focusing on fighting and mating, and then he just goes right back to being he probably is quite. I think this goes back to being quite docile, and actually hangs around with the other boys right into winter when they still have their antlers because they hang out together for protection from predators. Now, let me give you a little bit of funky history here. So this all feels so young and new, but if I come right down here, there is a little bit of pipe. See that pipe sticking out? So this starts to tell us the history of this area. So underneath the mountains, so the mountains up above us are extremely old, right? 470 to 530 million years old. But they were forced up and over by the subduction of the Pacific plate. And as the Pacific plate came rolling in to what was Turtle Island, North America here, it dragged islands in. So the other big chains of mountains further west in British Columbia are islands that slammed into this continent. That's what forced all of this stuff up and out of the ground like that. And as it forced it up and out, the old rock, which is eroded like that, pushed up and over the younger rock, and it's compressed down anthracite coal. So these front ranges down here, anthracite coal. Anthracite coal is the coal that burns the hottest. And that's really why, from a settler point of view, Canmore was settled because it was mines to bring out the coal to power the trains. Um, that's true, Jay. Now, if Elizabeth Puma is here, hola, Elizabeth, un gusto verte, amiga mía. If I see people saying hello, so if you haven't met Elizabeth before, she happens to be a personal friend, also a brilliant guide in a city called Arequipa in southern Peru, but very high up. So in fact, I am almost exactly 1 kilometer below Elizabeth right now. So Elizabeth is some of those peaks up there are about 2,600 meters, and she's at about 2,300 meters in her gorgeous city. Um, Really unique. And of course, a huge part of their industry is mining as well. So it is always fun to get as much exercise as I can at a higher elevation before then I'm going to head down to sea level and even below in the Netherlands. And then on the 28th of this month, I'm taking a train down to Paris en France. And I know everyone keeps asking me if I'm going to meet the other guides when I'm in Paris. And it's not that I don't want to. Um, but I'm meeting my. I have two first cousins in the world, and one of them lives in Paris, so that's my big priority. And then I'm meeting, of course, my friends and taking them out to the battlefields in Normandy. So we will put up tours according to their schedule. Obviously, it's all about them, and we're going to have so much fun. I don't know. There's a big subducted log in there, which is interesting to see. Every now and then, um, oh, and if you want to find Elizabeth, there's lots of ways, but one of the best ways is just check in on our camper van group because Elizabeth posts her tours there. Look at that lovely view of Grotto. The 28th, I go down to Paris. Um, Thank you for posting that, Jay. Yeah, and I will be there the night and having dinner over at my cousin's place in Saint-Germain-des-Prés. And then we'll be a couple of more nights in Paris and then out to Normandy and Brittany, including Le Mans Saint Michel. So that's awfully fun. Hi, Rosie. So yeah, it's just nice to connect with everyone and to keep building our connections. Um, there you go. A little bit of scat. That's not bear scat though. You always recognize bear scat because it's honestly so full of fruit. The bears around here, and there's a huge bear population in this area. Their diet is about 80% vegetarian in this area. Now, if you get out to the west coast, well, in fact, if you cross the continental divide, they have access to salmon, and that really changes the whole game for them. Changes what they can eat and their access to protein. In fact, out on the west coast, there are more and more bears that don't even hibernate. So hibernation is actually a food protection system. It's not sort of a requirement for them. They just slow themselves down. So the bears, when they woke up this spring, they woke up quite early because it was warmer than normal and there wasn't a ton of snow. In fact, I mean, there was one, I think, in late February that woke up. So the bears come out, they will have lost between a third and a half of their mass. The females will have given birth, and they have to have enough mass on for the seed to hold. So it's an interesting process. The 1 to 3, even 1 to 4 cubs, quite rare. Um, and then they launch into life. So let's go down. There's another little bit of creek down here in the distance. Um, yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, if you can find and follow our dear friend Elizabeth. So, Elizabeth, I think you know I'm on Streamlabs here, and this works very well on YouTube. So, look at the peaks up there. That is the grassy range, and you will still see the snow up in the couloir. That couloir there, so that's Miner's Peak. That is skiable in years when you have enough snow. Now, you have to be very careful because there's a couple of great big cliffs. Oh, Lisa, great question. They do not lock down the community. No, absolutely not. Bears are around all the time. One of the real concerns about Canmore here is there are some private holdings that were sold off in the 1990s as sort of a economic stimulation, and they've actually got holdings right up either side of the valley. Well, that pinches the valley out. When you see how low the tree line is in the Canadian Rockies here, you realize that animals are not going to regularly climb up and over those valleys. They're going to stay in their valley because there's nothing to eat up top in the bare exposed rock. So if the town pinches it out, that's a huge problem. So if bears are trapped, they will be taken 50, 60, 100 kilometers away. But when I lived here, now where I live in Banff, of course, many of you have stood on my deck and have the views at the back. I'm not allowed to touch anything back there. Animals there all the time. Um, I mean, literally all the time. Here, when the bears come around, this is actually managed by Alberta Parks, and there's actually a wildlife organization here as well. And so, no, the trick is just to move away. So, Joanne, your daughter in North Vancouver, I see black bears up there all the time. There are grizzlies further north, up towards Whistler, right? I love that little weather vane there with the person canoeing, and it looks like a feather as well. It's lovely. So yeah, I've come out of Grouse Mountain before and driven down and seen bears walking into people's backyards. Yeah. Okay, Chloe, let me explain it to you because it's pretty cool actually. You see, there's another bit of creek here. So this is where you suddenly get into these. These were old little cottages for years, and now they're great big multi-million dollar properties. And this is where I prefer the dense living. But yes, so you have stood up, Chloe, and many of you stood up because I did do a couple of tours up at the top of Miners Peak. So around back into that couloir, it is actually skiable. Back country, right? So you climb up with your skis or your snowboard and you find your way down. You want to have enough snow because you've got one drop, which is a proper 5, 6 meters anyway, if you get it right. If you get it wrong, it's a lot further down, but it is skiable indeed. Look at this reflection down here for a moment, everyone. Isn't that just gorgeous to see? The lovely big spruce trees out there and Douglas firs. Um, and then Centennial Park is just down here, another block. That's where they have the Highland Games, which of course the Scottish history here, and the Folk Fest. And the Canmore Folk Fest is one of the top folk festivals in all of North America, and therefore they don't they tickets sell out so far in advance. It's not really a tourist attraction. And that peak there is Eeyore, east end of Arundel, and I absolutely 100% owe you a tour from the top of that. It was closed for about a year. Está increíblemente bonito. Oh, Annie, are you going for a scan tomorrow? Well, this is a lovely, peaceful way. Um, if it would help, I could move the camera kind of quickly and we could pretend we're scanning around through the trees. But really, truly, it's fun to have you here. I don't know if people have given those super chat tips. If you have, thank you. I on the laptop they were really coming up. It was fun to see them. But you see all this lovely clear water. So this is all spring-fed water. And there's policemen street, and of course there's people with the e-bikes all over the place here. So big hugs to everyone. I know lots of people have all sorts of things going on through their life. That peak, by the way, in the distance, we don't get such a good angle of it. There's a squirrel just running across the path in front of me, but I want to come up. That is Mount Fable. And I'm sure, I have to look it up what the indigenous name was, but it was because people claimed to climb it, but then they claimed that they couldn't get through because of the density of the forest and everything. Hey, Danny. And so the following people to come on actually called it Mount Fable because they said they were lying about having attempted to climb it because it's actually quite an accessible route. Up through there, if you go up around the back of Fable, you actually get to the east end of Lake Minnewanka, and that's the largest lake in Banff National Park. And back at the back side of that is Mount Almer, which is actually the highest peak you can see from the town of Banff, 3,200 meters, so over 10,000 feet, nearly 11,000. And then you get up and over the back there, and you're in the Ghost. And you get in the Ghost, and that is where the bison are that have been reintroduced. So, and then out in front of us is a whole benchland formation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to have a nice little connection. I know that we're such a community that I didn't put up a tour yesterday, and it did rain. It rained quite heavily yesterday, which is fabulous news. Now, the rain's great news for us, but really, thanks, Danny. But really, the the rain is happening up north. There's actually still a heavy rainfall warning around Fox Creek. That's kind of the epicenter where the huge fires are. Today, when I was doing this private virtual tour, it was a sort of retirement connection. It was really neat, actually. It was Silver and Fit or something, like really cool crowd. And people were telling me they were way down, like in the eastern US, and they were getting smoke. That's from the fires up here. They're also getting a lot of rain up in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, which is the one flat bit of BC up to the north. It's really a continuation of the plains of Alberta. And they're saying that we need 4 days of continuous rain to really end the fires, but at least having a good rainfall up there. Isn't it nice, Rosie? Yeah, I love doing these little random visits like this. And one of the nice things about this YouTube format is, I can just kind of put it up. I always kind of aim for a half hour. I mean, if it's really relevant to go longer. Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, it's peaceful and it's fun and it's communing. And all I ask of all of you, I mean, those who can contribute, of course, I much appreciate that. Slowly but surely. I mean, I travel the world, but I would love to keep doing so, not always with groups of 40 people. So So that's part of the reason I put so much energy into this. But I also put a lot of energy into this because we built up such a community and I don't want to abandon it. And of course, I am theoretically monetized, excuse me, on YouTube here. Um, well, thanks, Chloe. So Chloe, you just said €2 from me. Thank you. So that's how it comes up here on the laptop. It comes up as like a whole big thing, but yeah, it's a big learning process. Oh, fellows out cutting the grass there. So I do want to say, hey, Robert, merci. Roberta Dubois, merci beaucoup. Thank you. So I want to say peace and love. Bon voyage, bon voyage. So tomorrow, if all goes well, I will whip through in London, go from Terminal 2 to Terminal 5, and then I'll get over to Amsterdam, where little hamsters run all over the place. Um, Hi, Kara, down here in Dallas. Nice to see you. Um, oh, it's nice. And then we will hopefully just put up, it'll be pretty last minute as always is, but I was going to show Mark how we can do these tours on the laptop. And so it'd be kind of fun to do that and have some cheese and wine. And you'll see how much I don't get fatigued traveling the world. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, and thanks, Maxine. So we're all going to climb into my car. It's pretty exciting. So now I have to go and get my kid from school. We're going to go and have dinner with my mummy. And then I am going to fly away like a bird. So AC 850, if anyone wants to follow my flight. Thanks, Hannah. Listen, peace and love, everyone. Now, this always cuts out. So I have to, oops, sorry. That's very odd. So I do have to warn everyone, when I turn this off, the chat just dies. And I always like to leave you with something suspenseful. So I do want to tell you about my least proud moment on an airplane, because this one time I was upgraded and I was sitting there and, well, the staff came by and started